job is not to tell you that these current policies are cruel and inhumane. You know that, your signs say that, and that's why you're here. My job is to, as the sign right in front of me says, fight truth decay. And as a sign I saw earlier said, that immigrants shouldn't be a scapegoat. They surely shouldn't. Immigrants are not the reason we have an economy that does less and less for fewer and fewer people. And immigration has actually made things better and not worse. So let me start with some untruths that you hear all the time, and I know you've suspected aren't true. It's because they're not. First, we're not being overrun by immigrants. It is not true. More immigrants than in the 60s, but by a percentage of the population, it's not out of line with other periods of high immigration. What is different is who is immigrating into this country. In 1960, 94% of immigrants came from Europe and Canada. Excuse me, it's 84. If you go back a little earlier, it is 94. But in 1960, it was 84%. After, under the Johnson administration, they passed the Immigration and Nationality Act that repealed all the quotas. Since then, from 1965 to 2024, just 14% of immigrants have been from Canada and Europe. 1/2 of the immigrants have been from Latin America, and another quarter are from South and East Asia. That's changed the face of America, and it's changed it for the better. Untruth number 2, immigration is hurting the economy. That's not true even if you just look at economic growth. If you look at what critics have to say, Borges at Harvard is maybe the best one. He even finds that immigration has added to economic growth in this country in the current period. And if you look at what everybody else says, it's added even more to economic growth. And there's a recent study done that said, if we only legalized undocumented immigrants from Mexico, that too would expand economic growth in the United States. So it's just not true. Neither is it true that immigrants are hurting wages of native-born workers. Here's what we know. Studies say, and it's all of them say, that there has been no long-term negative effect on wages for native-born workers on average in the United States. Other studies say there's a real positive effect. If you look more closely at the data, here's what we know for sure. Workers with a high school diploma have a higher wage because of immigration. Workers with some college have a higher grade because of immigration. Workers with a college degree have higher wages and salaries because of immigration. Now, there are some tech workers with advanced degrees that have lower salaries, but also we know that immigrants are much more often the inventors and co-inventors of innovation in our economy than native-born people, by far. And there's some debate about low-wage workers who are college, that high school dropouts. It depends on which jobs you're looking at, and it's highly debated. And I think we also never takes into account is who you're going to get to do the work. So immigrants shouldn't be a scapegoat for a bad economy. They didn't cause it. Immigrants shouldn't be a scapegoat for wages that don't grow like they used to It's not their fault. Nor should you blame immigrants for the massive deficits we see in government budgets. What we know is this: immigrants pay more federal taxes than they collect in benefits by a considerable margin. The reason is, as one of the signs says, immigrants are who built this country, and still today, 80% of immigrants are in the U.S. workforce. That means they pay sales taxes on what they buy, they pay payroll taxes on their wages, and some of them even pay income taxes, and hardly any of them ever collect Social Security benefits. And if you're a little younger than me, which is probably a hell of a lot of people out there, and you're worried about whether or not Social Security benefits are going to be there for you because there's not enough workers in the workforce to pay for the retirees, I have a solution for you: more immigration. Now, Donald Trump promises he's going to carry out the largest deportation program in history. If he came anywhere close to that, the results would crush the economy. Business Week economics, the business press, they say it would push us into a recession as deep as the recession of 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. And the job losses would be correspondingly deep. And what we already know is that immigration has slowed considerably. From 2003, net immigration to the United States was 4 million people. In 2005, the pace is for 600,000 people. And the effects are already present. In the latest data on unemployment, we know 400,000 manufacturing jobs went unfulfilled. At the same time, ACE is raiding garment shops in LA and deporting garment workers. Those are manufacturing workers. ICE is raiding meatpacking factories in the Midwest, and they're deporting immigrants, and those are manufacturing workers. What we know is that undocumented workers are a crucial part of the American workforce. They're a little over 5% of the workforce. Now, in certain areas, they're a far higher percentage. They're 43% of hired crop farmers. 43%. 22% of those undocumented workers work in private homes, doing house cleaning, home care, and child care. And 23% of, let me say it exactly right, and the immigrant share of the construction industry workers is 23%. Drywall installers, much higher. Painters, much higher. And roofers, one of the most dangerous jobs there is in construction, far higher, and often done by underage immigrants. It needs to stop. And what do we need to do? Well, stop deportation. Welcome the 11 million plus undocumented workers into this country. Make their status legal. Give them a voice in their living conditions and a voice in their working conditions. And we need to do the kind of organizing you all are doing, and is so impressive, in support of immigrants, but we also need to organize workplaces. We need, one, to stop the rampant violation of labor law. We need to stop wage theft that happens so often to undocumented workers. We need to push for a higher minimum wage and a living wage, not for immigrant workers alone, but for immigrant workers and native-born workers. And we need to make sure that every worker has the right to organize, the right to form a union, and a right to unite. And people like you are going to make that happen. So thank you.